Okay, viewers, let's see why nobody seems to, in our government, want to recognise why there's been 15 people killed on Bondi, iconic Bondi Beach, just down in Sydney, which we all knew, we all predicted this would happen. We're not Jewish, but we predicted this would happen. It was of no surprise to us Australians, or particularly this one. I've spoken to a few people and they had no idea, but if you follow this stuff you can see why these things happen. Let's just have a look at what's going on here. Oops. There.
Leaders say pro-Palestine protesters on Bondi Beach are lighting a dangerous fuse, with fears someone will be injured or killed. It follows last night's stunt where a lone horseman galloped along the sand waving a Palestinian flag.
The sands of Bondi turned political stage for the second time in as many days.
If I did it in Brighton, it wouldn't get the headlines. If I did it in Bondi, it gets the headlines.
Mission accomplished after 20-year-old influencer turned activist Edisham Ahmed galloped in bearing a large Palestinian flag.
It's about humanity. It's about children getting slaughtered in Palestine. So I'm not part of any creed or anti-Jewish.
The stunt attracting some support but plenty of criticism.
I think that's completely over the top. It's not allowed on Bondi Beach. It's a very popular beach.
Police were called, no charges laid.
And then we left straight away.
I'm more concerned about the violence.
Referring to Sunday's unauthorised protest that saw punches thrown, police asking for help to track down these three men, all in the thick of it.
I think this is getting to the pointy end. Emotions are high, someone is going to get hurt, and at worst, someone is going to get killed.
The Premier admits there is no simple solution, but says while the government can't prevent protesters from gathering at popular locations like Bondi, it can and will take action to protect the city from widespread disruption and violence.
I don't want a situation where Sydney is just routinely disrupted by political protests. You've got a right to protest, but other people have a right to enjoy the city as well.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Now, there was a couple of things said there that I think need to be taken into account. The Jewish people said somebody's going to be hurt. It's what this is doing is inciting the radical, fanatical Islamist jihad people. It's giving them permission. Now, this man never got in trouble, but he was clearly aggravating the public. He was clearly sending a message to Australia about Palestine, which we're all sick of. Let Palestine sort its own shit out in Palestine, not on our shores. And he also said that he used Bondi Beach as a reason, and the reason was he knew it would go worldwide. Now, these radical, and they can say they're not, but these radical, fanatical Islamic jihadist encouragers, because that's what they are, they're encouraging jihad, knew that they needed to use the Sydney Harbour Bridge, knew that they needed to use the Opera House to get out a worldwide message that Australia is easy takings for Islamist jihadism. Now, the government said they had heaps of things put in place and they were trying to resolve it, but they never called the problem Islamist jihadism, right? Now, I used to be a Christian evangelist, and some people go full bore. They get saved, they meet Jesus, and some people just idle along and become Christians, and other people go full bore. They become evangelists and they want to send out the message, and they'll tell people that they're going to hell if they don't believe and all that. They don't chop people up or run into crowds with hand grenades or, come out and start blowing up people with guns or setting their houses on fire or anything like that. They don't do that. But in a psychological sense and in a spiritual sense, they will tell you that you're going to hell, which isn't very nice either. All right, it's a hard message to swallow, and it's not very nice. But that, in a way, is Christian fanaticism. All right, the message is true. The Bible tells you to evangelize. But there's a fanatical way of doing it, and there is a kind, tender way of doing it. And so Christianity has fanatics as well, but they're not as harmful as the Islamist jihadists. Now, if this guy had been riding across Bondi Beach with Jesus Saves or something, I would imagine he'd get into some trouble. But the momentum, and our government speaks of momentum, and they use their momentum to make Palestine a state. Remember, it was all about momentum, Palestine becoming a state, and Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese, they all said, oh, we've got to keep the momentum. There was never going to be such thing as a Palestine state, but what the government actually did was send out a message to the radical, fanatical Islamic jihadists in Australia that this is all okay, we're on your side, you go ahead, because they never stopped any of it. As a matter of fact, they let it go ahead, and we're all watching. Right, us Aussies, with a little bit of common sense, we're watching it. And I said to my lot, this is gonna end up, right, with a massive terrorist attack, didn't I? Yeah, I did. And we just waited, right? Because when you contradict yourself, like the government was contradicting itself, it was saying it was putting all this into place and that into place, and it's like with sharks, they put in the nets, right? They put in the shark nets, but that doesn't stop every shark from getting past the nets, right? It'll stop. There's that one that can always find its way around the net and cause damage and attack, right? The nets are only a deterrent. The government never put any deterrents into place. They weren't punishing enough on the people that were demonstrating violence under the flag here, the, say, Palestinian flag, or the Islamic radical fundamental other flags that they've got, which they flew on the Harbour Bridge and at the Opera House and all this other. They'd always leave their Muslim Brotherhood, Jihadi, Islamic signs where they burnt things and where they attacked the mosques, and the government made investigations and everything, but they didn't make it against the law to do this stuff, which it should be, because it's inciting death. All right. These people believe, and you've got to understand this mindset, these people believe that if they carry out jihad, and they'll get their preachers come through and encourage it, Muhammad loves, or Allah loves you more if you are involved in jihad rather than if you're not. The Christians do it by saying, if you just sit in your seats and you don't evangelize, then, you know, and it really makes no difference about how God sees you. When these people get encouraged to do these things, the fanatics, right, this is the danger of it, the fanatics will carry it out. In this case, we had people that had a perfectly clear conscience about what they were doing, and I'm not going to show the footage. You can look it up yourself. When they were out on a hunt, like they were in the jungles of South Africa or wherever, shooting animals, they knew who they were going to target. They were well trained. Anybody that's half awake could see that the younger guy had been trained by somebody. He was too good at what he did, and he was determined as well. These ones are the ones that are going to bring death. So you can stop. The government's trying to sidestep the fact that they need to confront radical Islamic jihad within the Muslim communities in Australia because they're going to lose votes. And we know this because the international far left agenda to mass immigration into Western societies has no regard for the culture or the way of life that we live. They don't vet these people, they let them in, they support them, they house them, they encourage them, they let them go, at the consequence of this kind of massacre, right? Massacre. These people, the radicals, they got no intention of integrating. And I'm not going to talk about the Muslims that are integrating and peaceful. I'm talking about the radical fanatics. There's cell groups of them across the Western world, and we know that they're here in Australia as well. They'll spend money to be trained and enabled to kill, right? And this is how the government should be talking and making these people aware that we're onto it and we're going to find you and punish you and send you back to where you came from. Because all this flying of the Palestinian flag and this shit and rubbish about the Middle East on Australian shores has nothing to do with our way of life. And as a matter of fact, as you can see, it's tarnished Australia forever. So on the one hand, the government, let's parallel this again with the beaches scenes that was at Bondi Beach and sharks. On the one hand, the governments have got nets across the beach or drumline baits and all this other stuff. But that's only a form of prevention. It's not 100% guarantee. Now, they were going to take the nets out. They were going to take the nets out, and a man got killed by a shark at DY. And they've gone, oh, this was just a couple of months ago. They've gone, oh, no, we better not take out the nets. I mean, this is the idiocy of Australia at the moment. We'll take out the nets and we'll see it. Well, they're not killing the sharks. There's more sharks in numbers and sightings that has ever been recorded for quite some time. Oh, we're going to take out the nets. Oh no, we can't take out the nets because somebody's just been mauled. The second one in the space of a couple of years. So they had the prevention, but they didn't have a cure because there is no cure. There's no cure for fundamental, radical, fanatical Islamist jihad. Now, religion, and this is the problem, Christianity included, has its problems. You can have a perfectly good minister, looks fine on the surface, never made a mistake, and the next thing he's in bed with the worship leader. Right, there's a whole spiritual psychology behind that and why it happens and all these other things. But nobody is completely safe from evil. So when you allow this on a national and international level, this kind of, we don't agree with anti-Semitism, but you can practice it at our national landmarks, at our sacred, basically our sacred landmarks in the country, and then you're stopping peaceful speakers coming in and allowing the radicals to come in and say whatever they want. I mean, some of the behaviour that's gone on in Australia is absolutely without excuse, and the government can say they're not responsible, but they are, because they never said this has to stop. They're still beating around the bush blaming guns. Well, you can blame guns, but there's nothing from stopping a radical driving a car across the footpath and taking out 100 people on a footpath. Because the problem's not the guns, the problem's not the cars, the problem's not the aeroplanes that they fly into buildings, the problem's not the grenades, the problem's not the petrol and the fires. The problem is the fundamental radical culture, the radical commands that are in the Quran. I'm sorry, you guys, I've got a lot of good Muslim friends, but the Quran does have context that encourages the radical, fanatical, fundamental Muslims that want to go all the way to kill. So how are they going to stop it? How's the government going to stop it? Well, they're not going to stop it by stopping guns, or you're not allowed to drive cars, or you can't carry a baseball bat, this kind of thing. They've got to go to the root and go, any part of this Muslim Islamic religion that cannot be integrated with Western culture has to be illegal, and it has to be monitored, because that's what's causing these massacres. And I hate to say it, and I hope it doesn't happen, but Australia's still in a state now where there's a frenzy, right? That guy on the bridge, he got shot and knocked down and then got up again and knocked down again. I think he got shot 3 times before he finally just was wounded and laid down. These people, I'm telling you, right? You're frightened of the Christian evangelists that are telling you that you might go to hell if you don't believe? They're choir boys compared to these Islamic fundamental jihadists. And unfortunately, we ain't seen nothing yet. The government is in cognitive dissonance because they want the votes. It's an international, listen to me, it's an international left-wing migration policy that is being done despite the obvious consequences, the rapes, the massacres, the murders, all the little evils that are going on that don't even make the headlines, are the consequence despite knowing that these things will happen. They're allowing, because they want the votes. If you come in, we will vote for you. If we let you in, we want your votes, or you're back out. They know they're going to get the votes. It's got no consideration for the people that live in these nations, these Western nations. It's got no consideration for the values of the nation. It's got to do with the politicians keeping their jobs. And that's why they're not saying this is fundamental, right? Radical, fanatical Islamic jihadism. And that's what it is. You want to fix it? Fix the radical, fundamental Islamic jihadism. Don't worry about the good Muslims. Lock up and punish and deport the ones that are encouraging death. I'm out.